everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to create a React app that loads data from API with multiple pages and display it in a table. Our app will keep fetching data from each page until we have it all, and then we will display everything in one big beautiful table. And we'll do this using TypeScript and some best practices for React design. So let's jump right into it. First things first, let's set up our new project with TypeScript. And here I have a blank project that I create using Next.js. But feel free to use any setup you'd like. Next up is let's create a function that will handle our API calls. We will be fetching data from each page until we reach the last page. For good structure, we will put this function in a separate file and not within our component. So first thing what I will do is, and here basically what I will do is I will just define a function that I will call it fetch all data, and I will be using axios for today, which means I have to install it on my terminal and install npm install axios. And that is done. Now next thing is that I define an interface of my data item, and this interface will be depend of your API, whatever API you are using. Here I don't have any API, so I'm just mocking random endpoint for you to explain you how this one works. So here the fetch all data, it is an async function, okay, that will keep fetching data until there is no more left. And the way we are doing it is that we are setting a new variable here that will be storing all our data. Then we are setting a variable for the page counter. It's like a pointer that will keep incrementing. Okay, so we start from page number 1, and let's say the limit for a page for each page is 20. Okay, that we want to retrieve, and this one here is a boolean to see if we still have any more data left or not. Okay, and we will listen to this while using the while loop. So the while loop will keep looping while this one is true. So what we will do is we will trigger an API call with some parameter with page number and the limit per page as well. And when we get a response back, we will be storing that or adding it to our array of all data. And then if page data.length is equal to the limit, it means the current page is full and there might be more data on the next page. But if page data.length is less than the limit, it means we have reached the end of the data because the server returned fewer items than expected. And then in the end, of course, we just return the old data for us and make it available. So this is what fetch data does for us at the moment. So we'll save this. And the next thing we have to do is that now with that we have our API function ready, we have to create our main component to display this data. So what I will do, I'll go to my app folder, create a new folder called component, for example, and I will call it, I'll create a new file which will be our component. I'll call it paginated table.tsx, and I will generate a functional component here. And what we'll do is we need to trigger an API call when the component is about to mount. That means we need to use effect. So we need to import this element as well, use effect, and we need use state as well. Now next thing is that we need to import our function that we created. So we'll import that too. Also we'll import that data item type interface we created as well. Now what we'll do is we'll go inside our component, and first I'll define this component as a type of React.functional component. Then I'll go inside here, I'll create two states, and don't worry, we'll do this in ugly way, then also we'll clean it up later to use custom hooks. So let's create our state first, const. So we need the first one for data to store, and a function or set a function to set that data for us, and that will be equal to useState, and this useState will be of type the data item interface we imported, and it will be array of those data items, and we'll initialize our state with an empty array. Next thing is we just add a loading state as well, so loading, then set loading, and that will be equal to useState. We should be starting with true, and the reason why is because we trigger this API call the first time our component wants to mount, which means the loading state will be always true in the beginning, in the first initial mount. Okay, now next thing is we go and trigger our API, so we need use effect hook to do that, and in the dependency array that will be an empty array, and the reason why again is that because we want this to be triggered only the first time our component wants to mount. Now let's define a function, I'll call it get data, and that will be equal async function, and then inside this one we will be triggering our fetch all data function. And if you're wondering why we are adding or wrapping a function with another function, the reason why is use effect doesn't handle async function calls immediately. Okay, it can't work that way. And if you still have more questions about this, feel free to check my video about use effect, where I explain in very depth and in details why this is working and what are your ways around it as well. So what you have to do here, basically we have to define another async function within use effect, and then we will try to access our function we defined earlier. So I'll create a variable called const all data, and that will be equal await to fetch all data, okay, which will handle for us the API call, and then we'll call our use states to set them up. So first thing is set data, that's equal to all data, and we will set loading to false. And another thing is, if you're thinking about performance perspective, when you trigger this function and you have two setup functions for your use state, your component will not re-render twice behind the scene. The reason why is if you call a setup functions with an async function, the React app will take care of it, these new versions at the moment, and it only trigger one re-render behind the scene. Okay, so now we declared our function. Now let's trigger it. So we'll call it get data. Now to our UI part. So first thing is we just need to handle the loading state and then return our UI as well, which should be now this one very easy step. So I'm saying if the loading state is true, that means I'm loading data, just display loading data for me. Otherwise, if the loading state is false, that means I have a response back. Then just map through my data, my state data, and then display the table for me accordingly. So of course these ID and name and descriptions, they're just mocked elements for my response. But depending on your response, you'll be displaying the element that you need. Now let's level up this code and clean it up, and we'll be using a custom hook that will handle for us is fetch all data and manage the loading state and any errors also. Let's say later you want to handle errors or even, I don't know, other more functionalities. It will be outside of your UI component, which will fix for us the issue of, separations of concern. So I will go inside my app, I'll create a new folder, I'll call it hooks. I'll create a new file called usefetchAllData.ts. basically here we'll just move all the code that we have in here to that page. Okay, so let's move this and also import React from React, and also import our item as well. Now let's export const and we'll create our hook. And if you don't know yet, the hooks always start with use keyword, and we'll say use fetch all data, and you can call this anything you like, and that will be a function. And then all what we have to do now is just move all these things from here and paste them right there. Okay, and then all what we have to do now is return what you need to access from your component. So I'll return the data because I need it, and also I need my loading state as well. And I don't need the setters function, so I don't need to export them. Now next thing we have to do is import this hook in our component. So I'll save this, go back to our components, clean up this also, and import use fetch data from our hook, and then come inside our component and access whatever things we need. And I'll declare an object that will be equal to our hook use fetch all data, and here we will access the values. So we want the data and we want the loading state. Okay, this example here should work perfectly with any example you want, and you can see here we have handled this one very effectively. Alright, let's recap now the key points and best practices we followed here. First thing, the separation of concern. We kept our fetching API logic in a separate file. This makes our code cleaner and easier to manage as well. Second thing is the type safety. We use TypeScript for type safety to avoid runtime errors and make sure each data items follows the same structure. Then the third thing is that we followed the best practices in React pattern. We used to use effects for side effect like data fetching, and kept our component lean by only managing state within a separate file again using a custom hook, and we left our component taking care only for rendering our UI. And that is it. You have built a React app with TypeScript that handles paginated data like a pro. So thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed this tutorial and want more React and TypeScript tips, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. See you in the next video.